Thank you. Good evening, everyone. If we could start with the meeting with a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. Stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Swager,
Here.
I don't think I do.
Mrs. Thomas. Here. Mrs. Davis. Here. Mr. Benton.
Here.
Mrs. Brewer is unable to be here.
Reading of the notice.
This is a public meeting of the Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There's a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes. Upon request to the superintendent, the district shall make reasonable accommodation for a person with a disability to be able to participate in this activity. And a recording is made of each meeting of the board as an administrative aid and shall be preserved as public documents of the board.
Thank you. Presentation of the agenda.
I have one small change for the agenda. If you look at under consent, and it'll be under supplementals, supplemental employment K. If you go down to Gabrielle Edwards, it says cheerleading basketball head coach middle school. That should say high school. And then if you go to the right, it'll be step 0 for basketball head coach for the high school, and then football, the one before that will also be 0 because she's starting a new position there, moving to the high school. And other than that, there's no other changes to the agenda.
I have an extra agenda.
I stole his copy, so.
Didn't you get one?
No, I have one, but
That's okay.
Are we out?
I don't have one.
Okay, we didn't print it out. Do you have an extra?
Did Alan take the
No.
one?
No. I only
Is it
printed
on your left
25.
side?
is there another one up there?
Yeah, I think there's one.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry, I was
Thank you so
passing
much.
out
You have
papers
one.
and made lots of them.
There you go.
Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll. Oh,
Joy, is the LMH contract in here?
is he?
It is.
LMH?
Yes.
I have for the business. For the nurse.
Okay.
Yeah,
When we get to that
when
section.
we get to that one,
You
we
don't
can.
have to do it now.
Nope, we'll do it when we
No.
get to that
Okay.
section.
Because I don't think it's.
Is it in consent
make
or
sure
is it in the
I
front?
think it's it.
Okay.
It's number 6.
Do we want to pull that out of consent separately?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's.
That way
I'll
she
make
can
a
vote
note
on
of
the
that.
others.
The data survey.
I don't think
is-
that's. I think
That's not in
separate.
consent.
No.
Okay, how about this?
Yeah.
That's in consent. Why don't we pull it out of? Why don't we'll do a resolution, we'll add one right after the managed services, and we'll do 24-05-087A, and we'll make that the LMH nursing contract. 24-05-087A, we'll make that. So
That
we'll
way it's
insert
back to back.
It'll
Yep.
insert it, yeah, and that way you'll have.
Thank you.
If I can get a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
And when you catch up, you can call the roll.
Mrs. Davis? Yes. Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas? Yes.
Any prepared remarks from the public? Katie, you're up first.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for having me. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and we have a lot of our teachers here today. So I just found a poem that I want to read just to appreciate all of our teachers. So, and also, our principal spoiled us last week, so we really wanted to say thank you so much to the principals. It was amazing. We really, really felt appreciated. It was wonderful. So thank you. All right, The Shining Teacher. The author's unknown. Once upon a time, in a classroom so bright, there was a teacher, a shining light. With a smile on her face and a heart full of care, they taught us lessons beyond compare. Stories and numbers and letters and art. They sparked our imaginations right from the start. With patience and kindness, they guided our way, helping us grow and learn and play. They showed us the world both near and far, opening our minds like a twinkling star. Their words were like magic, making us all believe that we could achieve whatever we conceived. So here's to our teachers, so smart and so fun, for the adventures and all that we've done. In our hearts you'll forever shine bright. Our teachers, our heroes, our guiding light. Thanks, teachers.
Thank you. And thank you, teachers.
And then, I'm not sure.
Christy Hawthorne? No. I just want to make sure you didn't.
From Soil and
Soil and
Water.
Water. I just want to
Oh,
make
yeah,
sure
we
you
have
didn't
you on
need a
the
separate. We got you on the agenda. Yep. Just want to make sure you didn't have something separate. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks, Katie. All right. On to the presentations.
You're up.
And you're up.
Yeah. And then if you want to go right up to the mic there.
Good evening. My name is Christy Hawthorne. I'm the director of the Licking County Soil and Water Conservation District, and we are the chair of the River Roundup, which is the annual waterway cleanup that we host in the county. This year it will be September 7th, 2024. But as part of the committee work in promoting this as kind of a year-round initiative, we have a poster contest that we host in the springtime. It was announced on April 22nd that Katie Culbertson created this poster as part of the winning posters for the high school division. For this poster, she won $100 for herself and a $500 donation to the school for a science or an art programming project. So congratulations, Katie. So just a little bit about the River Roundup. It has been going on for 19 years. Last year, we cleaned up 13 locations for about 20 miles of waterways. We took 26,000 pounds of trash, 185 tires, and 2,500 pounds of scrap metal to be recycled this just in 2023. So there are ways for anyone to get involved, and we love to have school groups. It's a great way for your high schoolers to get their volunteer hours as well. Registration will open up on July 1st. So,
Excellent. Thank you very much.
thank you.
I did have a couple questions for you, though.
Sure.
When is the River Roundup? Is it one event or is it throughout the year multiple times? Didn't quite.
It is one event. We have one cleanup event that we coordinate across the county, and that'll be September 7th, 2024.
September 7th? Okay. Do you get in canoes and kayaks, or is it all from the shoreline, or
It
both?
varies.
Okay.
It varies depending on the size of the waterway. Like in Newark, in the rivers there at the main stem, the South Fork and the North Fork rivers, we do canoes. but the majority of them are walking and wading along the side of the banks.
Okay. And then if it is canoes, kayaks, do you bring your own or do you guys have them? How's that work?
We supply them.
Okay. Thanks. Alan, you don't even have to bring your own kayak.
Well, they know that they know they can get one from me. Right?
Yeah.
Right, Katie. So,
You have anything?
and Katie gets her talent honestly because both her parents are graphic artists. So,
Oh,
so you gotta give a plug to your parents, Katie.
yeah. Excellent.
Well, if we'll just
I'd like to see that
Yeah.
if you don't mind. I didn't see it up
Absolutely.
close.
Would you like to say anything, Katie?
Not really. I don't have anything.
Well, congratulations, and we appreciate it.
Congratulations. Her brother's not here. You couldn't talk your brother into coming?
Me either.
Alex.
Give me your
Oh,
That's what I was gonna
baseball.
say.
Priorities, right? You know?
Yes, sure.
She always likes to take checks.
That's great.
Well, congratulations. Very nice. So what day is that, a Saturday or a Sunday? Saturday. Sounds like a team event. All right. Yeah. You know me, I'm all about litter cleanup, so yes.
Probably knows how many been.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming out. Thanks. Congratulations.
Thank you. Ready for the next one?
We'll follow that up.
Okay. Well, won't be nearly as entertaining, sorry. We just wanted to, later in the agenda, you'll have some information about curriculum adoption, but I wanted to do an overview real quick. We've had our curriculum committee working on it. So within the board agenda tonight, you'll see request for approval for grades 4 through 8 in science, and the system or series is Amplify. Grades, well, it's actually 9th grade health is McGraw-Hill. Physical science is McGraw-Hill Inspire. For biology, we have McGraw-Hill Inspire also. Chemistry, McGraw-Hill Inspire. Physics, McGraw-Hill Inspire. And anatomy and physiology is Savas. Our team has been working pretty hard on this for a while. Debbie Seibel's been leading that. She's out at an Intel event in Chandler, Arizona tonight, so she can't be here. But she gave me some notes. So as you know, at the last work session, the board was able to listen to some presentations from some different test publishers. And then also what Debbie has facilitated with the principals, or some of the staff are going out and looking at different districts to see how the materials are being used and their satisfaction. So there's some of the staff has already been to Bexley schools, and then we also have a visit coming up, I believe, to Buckeye Valley. So that's forthcoming as well. And like I said, I know they've put a lot of work in this. I appreciate the board's diligence. If there's any questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll see later in the agenda tonight. There's a request to approve all those series.
Excellent.
Okay. Next, and I gave you a paper copy of this. This came through for within our technology committee, and it's the company DataServe that we work with now. So this is a managed service contract, and that's what I'm giving you a copy of. We actually, Debbie led this as well. We did an RFP process, and later in the agenda, you'll see requests for that. I'll break down the accounting for you because it looks like a big number. The total amount is $577,596.45. That's a 3-year contract. And if you parse that, there's a resource as a service component. Cybersecurity is something that's become much more a greater requirement for schools. We hear more and more about people trying to hack into our data, especially for student and staff data. We have a remote technical support, so that way we don't always need people on site, and that also works better when it's outside of the school day. And then the last one is platform as a service. So we have those 4 components that come together, and that totals at 577,000, almost 578,000. So again, I know that's looked at, that's been reviewed at various times, including work session and then the technology committee, but I'm happy to answer any questions about that. And that is for a 3-year contract, by the way, for that total amount. Questions?
We covered it extensively at the last work session, so I think we're good.
Okay, that's all I have for presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to board committees.
So we have had a few board committees that have met. Ruth Ann Boer wasn't able to come to finance, so we did have a finance meeting on May 10th. Is that something you want to report out on?
Yeah, I can.
Because I know you sat in for.
Yeah, for Ruth Ann on that one. Yeah, so Alan and I sat in on the finance meeting. I don't know, was that Friday, I guess. We met on Friday, May 10th. We reviewed school fees, managed tech services, which was what you just talked, and then the 5-year forecast. On the school fees, we just went over what we collect, what we use, how they're utilized, whether or not they're sufficient or too much in areas, and went through that whole how they're utilized. A lot of the fees are essentially the athletic fees and stuff pay for the busing, not quite pay for the busing, but that's large. They all the athletic fees go to busing, and it doesn't quite cover all the cost of busing, but it comes close. So we determined to leave those fees the same in the proposal because it was a minimal overage there for the board to cover the difference. We talked about the managed tech services, talked about the 3-year, 5-year, and obviously the data serve. We're going with the 3 years, and then discussed about the 5-year forecast. So that was the finance meeting.
Okay. Insurance meeting is tomorrow, so we have our staff meeting with our insurance consultant. So that, like I said, we'll have a report after this at the next meeting. Policy also met. I think Mrs. Davis, are you going to report on policy?
I don't have a formal report because the emails have gone out for first readings. I didn't want to get too much into the weeds. Derek was really good at trying to prioritize what things should we be looking at this summer as far as discipline and other things, so that we have it all good and in shape by the start of the school year. So that's what we've tried to prioritize for this time around.
And there's a lot in the agenda that covers that later on, so you'll see. And then we did have our strategic planning, economic development construction project, and that was on April the 26th. And Mr. Schwager was there. Mrs. Boer was not available.
And that one's that's where we met with the city of Johnstown, Dr. Wagner and I. We met to talk about development pressure, and I think everyone on the board, at least, and most of the public understands there's a lot of development pressure in the Johnstown-Monroe School District. So we were going over that, the impacts to the school district, TIFs, what that means, increase in student population. So we were essentially telling the city of Johnstown our story as to where we can take growth, how much, how far, what our maximum. We kind of went through all those numbers as to what we can. And the critical thing that we really discussed was the sewer and water. For those that don't know, sewer and water dictate development. So who has those rights and who runs that water and determines what development occurs. Because right now we don't have water and sewer in most of Monroe Township and Jersey Township and Liberty Township within our school district outside the city of Johnstown. So we were meeting with the city to discuss that, how that occurs, who has those rights. And there's a lot of current negotiations going on in that with the Southwest Licking Sewer and Water District as well. We, as in the school board, have talked extensively with the city. They've been a great partner to us. They've worked with us, and we are supporting, that the city of Johnstown run the water and sewer because we feel like we have a seat at the table with them. If it's anybody else, they can run sewer and water and develop without our direct input as a board. And as Alan often mentions, we're influencers, not decision makers on these types of topics. So we have a strong relationship with the city of Johnstown, and we would like to support them in that expansion and, watching how our district grows. So really the meetings we're having with the city is how can we help them and how can they help us make sure that we have controlled growth, sustained but controlled. We know growth is coming. We know it's, going going to have an impact here, but we want to make sure that it's done in a strategic way and in a way that the city can maintain their water sewer plants and build the new ones that they will have to, but also so the school doesn't get an influx of students all of a sudden and we can't no longer support the students we have. We don't want to be back in trailers or cottages as we often refer to them. So the city gets it. They're on board with us on that. But what we have to do is support where they're at on that, because there is to put it bluntly, there's a battle about who supplies sewer and water out there. And if it's not the city of Johnstown, we need a seat at that table. And currently we don't have one at that table. So we're really trying to align ourselves to make sure that the schools are not harmed through the development process. Anyone else have any questions on that? I mean, I know it's a vague statement, but it's really where we're at on the development side. So we're really working with our Monroe Township trustees extensively on how that looks, because for those that are aware of the annexation, that the city of Johnstown did out there on Duncan Plains, that's the start of some of that growth. And it's whether it annexes into the city or does not, those are the determination, and sewer and water is going to determine how that development goes. So that was our meeting.
That's it.
A couple hours of that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
And then there was a technology committee meeting on May 8th. Ben, do you want to report on that?
Well, I want to first thank, it was an expanded meeting where we had everyone that's part of the technology committee there. So I want to give a thanks out to the teachers that attended and the principals that attended, because without their help, implementing technology throughout the school district would be almost impossible. Right? So thank you very much. The big things that we alluded to, and there's a lot of teachers here in the room, hopefully everyone found out there's going to be a dual authorization to the system for next year because of cybersecurity issues. So you can either use your personal phone or key fob, and that will give you access to your system. We're going to start our refresh system like we do every year during the summer. We do our Chromebooks for our students, and there's going to be also a refresh system for some of the teachers, some of the computers that the teachers use. So everybody's looking at me like, is that good? Is that good, Katie?
Pick me faces.
Yeah. Is that a good thing? But then one thing that we've asked all the teachers to take a look at is look at whatever unnecessary software we may have within our system, because we've implemented a lot of curriculum processes and systems now. There may be some software that we're paying for that we don't no longer need to pay for and support. There's also a Chroma board refresh that we do every year, so you're going to see that coming down the line. And the one thing that we also talked about doing was perhaps having 3 days during the summer where we can do for new teacher orientation, and not only to be able to get onto our system, right? So James can help us with getting onto the system, but then there's tools within our system that a new teacher would need to be familiar with in order to hit the ground running. So there's going to be 3 days during the summer that we're going to host that to where we can try to help them. And I know some of the teachers that were in the committee thought that they might be willing to come in and try to help their fellow teacher as they get integrated into our system. James can help you get logged on to the system and access the system itself, but then to navigate through the system and use the tools that are available, that might be something that fellow teachers might be able to help. And then, it goes back to the whole concept of mentorship. I know every year when we have a new teacher come in, there's always a mentor assigned to that teacher. So we want to thank all the teachers for all their support and really supporting the entire organization. And so on the behalf of the board, I know we all are very thankful that you're helping us.
Excellent. Thank you.
And the last committee report is for our local professional development committee, and that met on May 7th. And those in attendance were Stephanie Stuckey, Laura Kurtz, Renee Britton, Annette Price, Ben Jagger, and Derek Busenberg. And during the meeting, they looked at staff's individual professional development plans. They approved 7, and then they returned 4 back to staff for modifications. I won't read all the names, but in the interest of time, but just so you know from a high level what was happening there. They also looked at license renewals, and they verified hours for 9 staff members. So they will have their license renewed. And then they actually spent some time looking at contact hours for staff, and the LPDC, or the Local Professional Development Committee, approved all professional development contact hours for teachers and administrators in all 4 of the buildings. And that's the bulk of what they did at LPDC.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to consent agenda.
Resolution 24-05-078 is consent agenda.
Minus the modification we made.
Yep.
If we can get a motion,
I'll make the motion.
and if I can get a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion, if you want to go through
Can I just
anything?
go through?
Yep.
The first, or the second item actually in consent is some administrators. So I wanted to highlight that Nick Hancock is here. Nick, if you can stand up. I think you had a busy day today with a child with a need, right? But he still made it to the board meeting. So we're going to want the board to approve him as the new principal at Johnstown Middle School. And I want to thank Chris Almendinger. We'll mention her in a few minutes as well too, but she really did a lot to help grow Nick professionally. He's of course a great person. So looking forward to working with you at a different level there, Nick. I do want to say too, Chris, I talked with Chris and we had about 8 teachers that got together and just free conversation and very supportive about Nick and what's going on at the middle school and being able to continue that. So I thought that was important. And then the board approves Nick tonight, then what we will do is then post the Dean of Students position at that point. Okay. Christian Grove. Is Christian here? Christian, I'll ask you to say a little bit to the board, but I'll tell them a little bit about you when you, okay. Yeah, you can go up to the mic so we can record everything. So Christian recently earned his leadership certification, licensure, I can say it. And he'll tell you a little bit more about that. And that we're recommending him to work at the high school. The candidate pool was kind of large. We actually had 18 applicants, not all of whom were qualified, but we had 18 applicants for the position. And Christian's our person we're recommending moving forward. So Christian, if you can tell the board a little bit about your background and what interests you in this position.
Yeah, so I've been an intervention specialist for the past 8 years. I've been looking to get into the administrative side of the world for the past 4 or 5, but I finally took the step about a year ago. And my wife let me go back to school with our 2 kids, so it was nice to do that. I've been at Licking Heights for the past 4 years, gained a lot of knowledge and experience there, especially under one of my principals. And so from there, I knew that I wanted to go back to maybe a smaller school, and that's where I'm from. I'm from West Lafayette, Ridgewood, which is pretty much like Johnstown. Not experiencing the growth at all, but it still has their ways. So I wanted to get back to that, and in the administrative side, and this seemed like the perfect place to be. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then last there we have Amanda Douglas. We want to up her contract. I don't know if she's not here tonight.
It's her birthday.
Well, that's more important. I can see. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, that's
her
important.
birthday.
We recognize.
And it's a birthday.
How do you people know all this?
I just know.
I mean, I get it. The Robin knows.
You don't get the morning text?
No,
Oh.
I'm like, boy, Amanda knows it all. Amanda Davis. That's okay. Next, we have resignations, and I think we'll skip the first one. But next one is Ben Jagger. We should skip that one too, but we'll accept it. And then we have Kira Senke from JES, and then Lori Cohen, who's our EL specialist. With Chris, though, I believe that there's a video that I'm told that they are going to show. Now, my understanding is with this video,
It's a little home movie in here
Yeah,
too. Oh,
that it
excellent.
actually, Chris is a graduate of Johnstown. So my understanding is that this video covers a wide breadth, including some pictures perhaps from her days as a teacher. And there's a theme, I believe, of Purple Rain. Is that right, from Prince? Oh, so I think it's just a couple minutes. So let's see. So I'm sure some people will be in trouble afterwards about that. I'm supposed to tell you that Darren Busenberg didn't have anything to do with that video. They have an ongoing thing back and forth.
I honestly would have never thought you were a Prince fan. That kind of surprised me a little bit.
It was a prom theme, I think.
Oh, all right.
So anyways, but certainly hard to have Chris leave after all of this time. I've only known her for a couple of years, but it's been a tremendous honor working with her. I've said this publicly and privately, but I'll say it again because I think it bears it repeating. I'm amazed how well Chris has just adapted. I mean, when I came in here, I thought, okay, there's going to be potentially some change. And, I thought I was really watching because I thought, will she be able to move along with this process? And she's been a tremendous teammate, gives me the good historical background on things, but also has been right there as we've looked at curriculum adoption and some other things. She's been a tremendous teammate. So we're going to miss her, but wish her all the best in her retirement years. So.
Yes,
I'm
thank you
very
very much.
saddened personally, right, Chris? We've known Chris for many, many years. We won't go into how many, right? And our kids all went to school together, and make a note that she was a special ed person for a number of years. So that's out to our new dean of students in the high school, that she was an intervention specialist, is what they call it today. But we're really going to miss you, Chris. It's a real loss. I can't imagine that you're retiring, but I guess it's time.
How long has
Thank
she
you,
been
Chris.
principal?
I really appreciate it.
7 years.
And they always say that you have 7 circles. And I remember meeting you. It's been a while. I can't even tell you the year, but I was helping my mom put up the bulletin boards at Hartford. And that's when I first met you. And so it's just been a real privilege to see how your careers just continue to move up, and you help the students along the way so much. Thank you.
Mr. Swagger asked me how long Mrs. Almendinger's been here. So she's been 8 years as a middle school principal. And then to fill in some of their backgrounds. So she was, she worked at Springfield Schools for a year. Then she taught K-5 at some district nearby us for 9 to 10 years.
We all make
I'm
mistakes.
supposed to say that. Then she jumped the Viking ship. So. And then she was 14 years an intervention specialist at the high school. and 3 years as a coordinator of student services, and as I said, 8 years as a principal.
Excellent. Fantastic career. Do appreciate everything you've done, Chris.
I agree. I think that you've been a tremendous administrator, and I hope that you enjoy every minute of retirement because you deserve it.
Okay, so we'll move on through the consent agenda. So Connie Patchett, we have as unpaid days. We have some long-term substitute contract non-renewals, and some of these positions are such that they're just not guarantee of future employment because they came in on a temporary basis. So there could be opportunities in the future, and we'll work through that. Certified employment, I won't read all the names, but you can see there's quite a few staff there for certified employment. And we have a resignation, Elena Best from classified. We have some unpaid days there too that we can go through. Classified employment on the next page. Sorry, this is always a busy time of the year. Next, we have paraprofessional employment. So we are talking about Sherry Summers there. She can work some extra days. She helps with the EL population. When we get to supplemental employment, or we're there with Gabby Edwards there. I already told you about the changes, W00, and then both positions should go high school. I want to highlight too, on these supplementals, there might be some more supplementals we bring at the next board meeting, but this is the bulk that we have right now. Next, we have people activity and a list of people there. Also, that's a partial list. We expect some, or potentially partial, we expect some potential other additions at another board meeting. We have a list of volunteers there. It's quite lengthy. Instructional coaches, we have Julie Metelko, Lisa Allen. We talked about them at a board meeting. As a reminder, Mr. Schwager said we removed the Lincoln Memorial Systems nursing agreement to my sections. We'll cover that in a little bit. We have Ohio Health Athletic Trainer Services. We have board meeting minutes. There's 2 of those. We have a monthly financial report from Felicia. I believe that's all for consent agenda unless there's questions.
Any questions on any of that? It's a lot of names, a lot of.
Yeah.
I always just ask that someone verify all those groups and steps because inevitably someone gets through once in a while.
We have, well, they should be. We've gone through this with payroll, with staff, administrators. So, yeah, we believe everything's accurate. We've checked that many, many times.
All right. Any other questions, comments from anyone else? Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas? Yes. Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Next resolution is our donation, so 24-05-079. And this is, Remy will handle this.
We have donations from John and Ann Clotter for the Karen Hartman Memorial Scholarship, $100. From Clotter and Company, again for the Karen Hartman Memorial Scholarship, $200. And John and Jeffrey Kessler donating in name of a new scholarship, the Charles and Patricia Kessler Foundation Scholarship, in the amount of $2,500.
I don't think anybody from the Kessler family is here right now. They were going to possibly try to make it tonight. I mean, Chuck Kessler was a longtime educator and then superintendent here, and his wife Patricia recently passed away. Also was a longtime Johnstown educator. So I've been meeting with the 2 sons, John and Jeff Kessler. So we're going to put together this scholarship relatively quickly for this year, and then it'll most likely be absorbed into a larger scholarship in the future, but that remains to be seen, that process.
Excellent. We have to do the 5-year forecast as part of this same action agenda.
No, they're
Separate. Okay. Did we get a motion on this? If we can get a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Further discussion?
And I'll say also, John used to be a school board member here many years ago too, and I've known the Kessler families for many years, just as I've known Chris Almendinger family for many years. and they've been very supportive of our school system, and just is an amazing support over the many years that they've been part of our system.
Yeah, Chuck's been amazing. I mean, he's been off the board or out of the schools for a long time, and he's been the most supportive. Every time we have a levy come up, anytime we're doing anything, Chuck's one of the first ones to call and say, "What can I do?" I know he's reached out to every superintendent we've had here as soon as they come on board, saying, "What can I help you with? Anything you need, call me." So Chuck's been fantastic for this district, and I don't know that he's the epitome of somebody caring about the community. Chuck really cares what goes on in Johnstown and puts everything he has into making sure it's a success. So
And John's the same way too. John would do anything for the schools.
yeah,
So it's father, like son, right? So
oh, that'd be fantastic.
That'd be
Great.
Fantastic.
Before the board votes on this too, I just got a text message, so our team's reminding me. Mrs. Wagner wants to also highlight a couple new teachers on the agenda here, so you can go up and introduce them if you wouldn't mind.
I'm excited to have two new staff members here tonight that you just voted on a couple minutes ago.
No, they're voting. They haven't voted.
Oh, haven't voted yet on the consent?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, we just approved.
Sorry,
You're
go
good.
ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
It's official, girls.
We're not going to rescind it, so you're good.
Yeah.
First, we have Olivia Lehman, and she'll be teaching kindergarten. She's coming to us from Muskingum University, and this will be her first teaching job. She's certified pre-K3, but also intervention specialist license. So, Olivia. And next to her, we have somebody who doesn't feel new to us because she's been at our elementary since January. She did a long-term sub for us through spring break and then has pretty much subbed almost every day since then. But this is Caitlin Conley, and she is an Ohio State graduate, the Ohio State University graduate, and she'll be teaching first grade next year for us. So we're so fortunate to have both these wonderful ladies, and thankful to the committee of teachers who sat in on the interviews and grilled you for a little bit, but they're going to be great additions to our staff.
Thank you, Mrs. Wagner, for your text message. And thanks to the team for all because there's a lot more, there's some more interviews. And then Mr. Jagger's been leading that too, so that's been tremendous.
Welcome aboard officially. Again, thanks for on the donations. Didn't want to pass up John and Ann Clowder and the Clowder and Company. Want to thank them as well for the donations to the scholarship funds. Any other questions, comments? Call the roll. Yep. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Benton,
yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager.
Yes.
The next item before the board is the resolution to authorize, actually approve the 5-year forecast for the May submission.
Can I get a motion?
I'll motion.
Second.
Thank you. May represents really a tune-up to our current year forecast, and the district is trending as we have projected, but we are cautious about future revenue projections due to some uncertainty with state funding and with Intel. And so I'd like to just talk a little bit about those two items. With state funding beginning next year, we will no longer be formula funded. We will be on the guarantee. And that guarantee amount is because our property values are growing faster than our enrollment. So the formula doesn't work for us any longer. Currently, the funding, the guarantee under the funding is at the fiscal 20 level. So that was 4 years ago's state aid amount. My hope is that the legislature will maintain the guarantee in future biennium budgets, but that's always a question mark because that's up for discussion every 2 years. And the legislature spends a lot of time questioning the necessity of the guarantee, talking about eliminating it, and talking about reducing how much it's funded. So that will be something we need to watch and stay tuned into. As far as Intel opening, I think we've all heard that Intel has announced a delay of their opening to the fall of 27, which is our fiscal 28. That is the last year of the forecast, the current forecast. So any potential, revenue agreements that we were hoping for will also be delayed then to at least fiscal 28. It also means the other businesses that would have come with that, about 100 or so businesses were expected to grow in Central Ohio. Those are now also delayed. So just keeping those in mind, it just makes revenue a little less certain as we move forward in the forecast, and it has postponed those early states of possible benefit from that revenue source. The most notable change from the November forecast to May now was the establishment of the budget reserve in an amount equal to 90 days cash for operations. This is essential to maintain stability as we face that uncertainty with revenue in the future. Also, it looks a little peculiar. We have to keep in mind government accounting is fund accounting. So when we did that transfer, that increased expenses and it increased revenue because it was moving from unrestricted within the general fund to restricted. But it did not actually have any impact positively or negatively on our overall financial position. So I would just say in conclusion, as you look at May, that we will continue to monitor the economic trends and make sure that anything new information that's emerging is reflected and represented in our November forecast, which is really our reset for the future 5-year cycle.
All right, thank you. And this plays back into that conversation we're having with the city on sewer and water, because obviously until the jobs are here, we don't get any of the money, from Intel. But if they develop and have a bunch of housing, the money hasn't come from the development, but then we get the housing. So that's why it's critical to have balanced development where you get jobs and housing relatively close to each other, because otherwise it doesn't work out financially for us or the city of Johnstown. You have to have the business income tax or the business offset to pay for the actual cost. So house to house, if you really break into it, no house pays enough to cover. We have to have businesses included in that, and that's why we strongly encourage those businesses to come, because it does help offset the cost to our local residents. So that's the balance, and that's why we're watching that with the unfortunate or fortunate delay in Intel, depends how you look at it, has an impact on our 5-year forecast. So any questions or comments?
Well, the only thing right now, it looks like we may get housing before we get any money from the businesses.
And that's the concern.
So that's a concern that we have. When we look at the finance committee, that's a real concern. And, when you look at the 5-year forecast, really the impact of Intel is not going to be there because they're moving their date back. So we're really concerned because I believe the development for the housing and stuff is moving forward. So I'm not sure the timelines quite match. So I don't think we're in as good a position as we thought we were a year or so ago.
Any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
Yes.
Moving on to the superintendent.
Resolution 24-05-081 are the 2024 Johnstown High School graduates.
If I can get a motion.
I'll motion.
You have a graduate. You get the motion first.
I'll second.
All right. Congratulations to all of these graduates. Any other comments from anyone?
One thing I would say is it's all contingent upon final completion. So there's a few students we're working with still, and hopefully we can get them across the line. And if not, then they'll have a summer opportunity, and we'll see if we can get it done then. But there's a small group of students.
So you're telling them not to give up. I mean, not
Well,
to just
hopefully
keep working
publishing-
hard right to the finish line is
Working
what he's
hard.
saying.
These are publishing your name could possibly help, but it's The board's approving the maximum. We're doing everything we can.
Yeah, excellent.
Congratulations. There's 128 graduates. 128 graduates. Congratulations.
Yeah, I know you were proud mom, right?
All right. Any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-082 is an overnight field trip for girls basketball.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Discussion? Is this the same location they went last year, or is this different?
I honestly don't know.
It is the same
see, yeah.
location.
I think it looked like the
Same
same.
location.
Okay, I thought they went to Liberty. Okay. I didn't hear anything. They gave a report last time, and everything went well, and they enjoyed it. So, any other questions?
I just like to see that there's an opportunity for the students while they're there to visit another college store, something like that. While they're there. I think we talked about that last year.
Yeah.
And just like have the opportunity.
We'll talk
Do as
to
much as they
Coach
can.
Helmke. My guess is if it goes like they have, those universities are trying to sell themselves to
They
those
are.
kids when they come in.
Sure.
So,
Make sure they get a tour.
Yep.
Sometimes they just come in and teach them in the gym. but
Right.
To see the actual entire campus would be good.
excellent. You could pass that along to. Thank you,
And
Mr.
that's
Busenberg.
not just, Mr. Helm.
It's great. I just see a head
all.
back there nodding once in a while. He's got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-083 is an overnight field trip for football.
Can I get a motion?
No motion.
And a second.
That's like,
Mrs. Owu, the one they always go
Yeah,
to.
that I know.
Thank you.
All right. Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-084 is an overnight field trip for our senior trip 2025.
If I can get a motion.
I'll make-
I was reading. I didn't
I
know if
know.
we were going to DC, New York again, and that's why I was reading. And can I get a second?
I'll second it.
So yes,
Can I find
two
time last
locations.
time?
Mrs. Ortman is here, and these are students who had disruption because of COVID. So
Is this the last year we're doing
Yes.
two? Okay. I just was
it went well this past.
didn't know
year.
if we were trying to set a precedent moving forward or just catching up. Okay.
Heard the you got a report earlier that
Yeah.
that went well, and I know that's difficult for
Yep.
two locations, but it helps make these students whole again, so they make up for their missed time.
Sounds good. Any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Swager.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-085 is the content or credit and content recovery support stipends.
Get a motion.
No motion.
And a second.
I'll second.
We put maximum amounts in here, so I'm not sure we'll meet all of these limits, but we thought better that way than coming back to the board later on. So these are supports for some students who need some additional help over the summer, some of whom high school could be for graduation, for other students, just helping them progress to the next grade level. So it covers, all four buildings are covered for this. And again, we can reconcile this later on in a curriculum committee meeting, but this is the maximum.
Are we going to be doing, excuse me,
Okay.
are we going to be doing something that we've done in the past for like high school students, 10 days?
Yes.
Same plan. That's what I was going to. It's
Yeah,
the same plan
this
as last year.
Similar, but Mrs. Wagner has some changes a little bit for JES. We're actually looking at even some incoming preschoolers and some assessments. And, yeah. Yeah.
If we could get a report back on our successes on this, I would like to see how
We've done the recovery now. 3 years, 4 years,
this will be the fourth.
the fourth, this will be the 4th year, so we should have some type of data.
Right.
To see if it helped them at their goal to the next grade level.
I'll work on that. Sure. No problem.
Any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-086 is termination of partnership with the Licking Area Computer Association, LACA.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion?
So what the board is approving, if you approve this tonight, is we have to give at least a year's notice that we may be discontinuing services with LACA. And the effective date then, if we did that, would be July 1st, 2025. They're going through some restructuring at LACA now, so we'll see, but this preserves our option because we have to do it, at least, if we don't do this much, it has to be next month. We are working with Meta Solutions, and right now we have a combination in terms of service providers, some Meta and some LACA. And one of the concerns is that it's just hard when you have two systems running. So, we'll see, and we'll see what happens with LACA. Again, if the board approves this, then we'll keep you updated.
So if we terminate, we give them notification of termination. What's the latest that we can renew with them? Is there a date set next year that we can say, never mind, we're not terminating?
We have to work through that because actually the other thing we're looking at, no, I don't have that right
Okay.
now, but that is, I've told them that this is potentially forthcoming pending board approval. And then the other part of that too is working with Meta to see what kind of onboarding process it looks like. A lot of the onboarding shouldn't be that difficult because we use two systems. The EMIS is the part that's difficult because there's a system called the data collector, and our data sits at LACA right now. So we have to determine, geek out on this too much, but with Meta Solutions, when they work with us, they can only get up to that wall, and they can't get below into, they're not allowed because there's only you're only allowed to have one. So what system available per school district, ITC. So we'll keep you updated, but this will start the process of looking at the transition, so I can give you a better answer.
Okay, thanks. I mean, we couldn't be the first school district to switch, so there's got to be ways to.
Other Licking County districts are, actually, two of them already in Licking County have made the change. So
Okay.
a lot of this, it's nothing against LACA, but it's just as we progress, and we haven't grown as fast as we expected thus far, but we're building systems to prepare for growth. And when we work with these two organizations, that's one of the things we're talking about, scalability, so that at some point we will grow. And some of that's primarily, a lot of that deals with CTEC because they're in a different system than we are. So that's something we're going to have to manually work through because I'm not sure unless all the districts or even like CTEC move over to Power School, but I don't think they're ready to do that yet. So, but it is on our list of something to look at.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-087 is managed technology services. And this is with DataCert.
Get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? I think we know this one we've discussed extensively.
Yeah, we had the 3 or 5 year option. We're going with the 3-year option right now. And then, they provided very good service. Debbie did go through an RFP process, I said before, so we looked at some different companies, but we're going to stay with DataCert if the board approves.
And at the technology committee meeting, teachers were very supportive of DataCert. They raised them. And James is there on board, but there's backup email for James.
Excellent. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Next resolution is the one we added, so it'll be 24-05-087. And that's the resolution we pulled out of consent, and that is with Licking Memorial Health Systems. This is a nursing agreement.
This is 087A. Is that
Sorry,
what-
878.
If I can get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
In a second. Any further discussion?
No, this is we've been going year to year. So it's a 1-year contract with Licking Memorial. They do provide 2 nurses, 1 technician for us. Have done a nice job meeting our needs, so we'd like to continue with that.
Okay. Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas, Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-88 is the Summer Professional Development Math and Science.
If I can get a motion.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
One of the things that I should say, this is a partnership with the Educational Center of Central Ohio. And one of the things that's been a benefit is the partnership. You know, we worked with them this past year in the area of math. What they're offering us here is professional development up to 5 days for our staff. And we have a grant that we can participate in. So it would support up to 63 teachers during the summer. So we're excited about this potential partnership.
Excellent. Any questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas? Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-089, a resolution for transportation deemed impractical for this current school year, which is the 22-23 school year.
Motion.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
I think the board,
Yeah.
understands what this process is, but we just have to.
Yeah, each year we have to
We
do.
can't,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, and there might be some additions to this in the future. This is the bulk right now. There's some follow-up, so we want to at least get.
These are all the schools that we know of that
Yeah.
children often would
Yeah.
apply. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-090 is payment in lieu of transportation, also for this school year.
Can I get a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Similar to the last resolution, this is a majority. There might be a few more people that come forward, so we'll bring them in the future. But these are parents that receive the
applied
state
for it.
minimum, and have applied for the payment in lieu of transportation.
If I can get a motion or call the roll, please.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-091 is adoption of science curriculum, and that's grades 4 through 8, 9 through 12.
Motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I believe boards, we talked
Yeah,
about
we-
this at the beginning, so let me know if there's
Yep.
questions. But we do
Saw the
appreciate support
presentation.
So we can update our curriculum materials. It's great for the staff to have current materials.
Yeah. Any questions from the rest of the board?
Just want to thank the teachers and the administration for going through and doing the in-depth dive.
Yeah.
They looked at several vendors.
Well, and thanks to the curriculum committee or 2 board representatives, because this is not a one and done. This is an ongoing process we've been talking about. We adopted a curriculum cycle last year, so they were at the next stage.
Yeah, I was also just going to thank everyone who is a part of this process. It's a huge undertaking to look at curriculum, what we currently have, what's working, what's not. So that we've got some representatives in the back who has been on presentations and been really helpful and supportive. So really excited to see what we're bringing in. I also acknowledge it is a lot of work for our teachers to learn new curriculum, but I think we do it because we see the pros outweigh the cons, and the work will be worth it for all of the really exciting material that the students are going to get.
And ELA will be forthcoming. This was just our science today, so more to come in the next board meeting or 2.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-092 is electrical trades program with CTEC.
Can I get a motion
I'll motion.
and a second?
I'll second.
This is an exciting opportunity. Earlier in the year, the board approved a multi-skilled technician, which is our four-part exposure program. So next year at the high school, we will have the opportunity for some students to get their career tech education here at the high school. And in that program, we're looking at electrical trades as a subset, construction, carpentry, pipe fitting, and then plumbing, and then also digital controls like HVAC. So as the conversation progressed and we started looking at students who are rolling in CTEC, who are rising juniors right now, there is a very strong need for the electrical trades. And not surprising, we talked last night about economic development and related matter. We had 11 rising juniors apply, and they can only accept about 6 of those students. So it started the conversation about how many more students are there out there. So if the board approves this tonight, we'll have to do some reorganization, but we can launch this program in the fall that will allow us to offer electrical trades. And we'll even go back to the students who possibly electrical trades as a second request beyond that 11. And then much like the multi-skilled technician program, we can also serve a partnership on the western side of Licking County. So this would allow Northridge students, a few, to potentially participate if we have some openings. Southwest Licking and Licking Heights. So it'll be the 4 school districts collaborating. So this would give us 2 career tech programs next year. And then the ribbon cutting that we did with robotics and some additional equipment, this is all going to fit together. So this is, I think, quite exciting.
No, you know my feeling. This is fantastic. I think this is a really nice step for us here in the district to get the students to stay in the school here. They're going to follow our schedule. They'll be on our break time. Everything syncs up with our school. I think the parents and the students will be very ecstatic to see us go down this avenue, and I couldn't be more excited and hope for even more of this as we move along and show the success here.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting time to be a student at JHS. There's a lot of opportunity, and Dr. Wagner and the administration team and the teachers are all very visionary, innovative, and it's very exciting to bring to Johnstown the multi-craft, but now the electrical training as well. I think to be able to keep our students here is an opportunity. They're able to participate more in the daily and keep their friendships within Johnstown. If that changes, if we do that.
Mr. Ben, before I mentioned about businesses, also we talked to businesses about the 2 programs that are coming. They're very excited as well. I mean, encouraging, want to know about workers and, people with, and these are well-paying jobs when they're done.
I know that's one of the questions that we had asked is will they still get the same contact,
Yep.
Networking as they do in your work. A lot of the trades drop by during the day and stop into the classrooms where they have different events for them. So that's important. Hopefully that will still come here.
Yes.
Or we won't have
Yes.
to.
Yeah. It really should look like a C-Tech program, except we'll be housing it. Like I said, and then if we have space, we can open up a few spots to area school districts. But it'll provide a lot for our students. When we talk about the 3 E's, this is part of it. So the employment track, but we're also doing a lot academically. So, we also, next year we'll have the second highest level of math with calculus AB, and then the following year we should bring in calculus BC, which will top out our math too. So we're working on entire spectrum, but thank you for supporting this.
Excellent. Thank you. Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-093 are Chromebook purchases. This was reviewed by the Technology Committee.
If I get a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Much room. I mean, we already heard
Yeah.
the report out
Yep.
of the technologies.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-094 is approval of student handbooks. The 24-25 school year, multiple handbooks.
If I can get a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion.
The gifted handbook is still forthcoming. We're waiting from information about from the Ohio Department of Education workforce on that, so that's forthcoming.
And on the athletic handbook, I had asked Dr. Wagner to set up a committee to study. If you see in the handbook, we're taking out the drug testing because we've not done it in so many years. It's not that we're not going to or reserve that. We want to actually start a committee to discuss how to actually implement it and the best way to go about that. So while it's being taken out of the handbook because it's not being used, we've asked that a committee actually be started to come up with a way to actually enforce that, do something with it, because at this point it's been in the handbook, but we haven't actually tested any of our student athletes in, I don't know, 15 years probably at this point. I mean, it's been quite a while. So we feel that it's important. We really want to do it, but we want to make sure we get it right. So we want to do pull that out and actually have a committee look at that. And then also we had looked at a couple of the disciplinary stacking, and we discussed that of some type of a term limit on that. And Mr. Busenberg is aware of that and currently being enforced correctly. So I think that's answered the 2 questions we had.
And you know what we'll do? We'll work on. I've had some experience with the drug testing. as well too. So the committee would be good. Typically, you would have students, staff, coaches, possibly some parents, maybe a board representative or two. So we can look at that and talk about testing as well as process. And then the discipline stacking, we'll look at that. We'll give a future report out to the board. We'll look at some of that data just for everyone's clarity. That's if a student is disciplined multiple times during their high school career. It could be 7, 12 years.
Right. Yeah. So if you get in trouble in something in 7th grade as your first step and it occurs in 12th grade, right now it's a second offense. And we kind of want to look at that, how it works and what severity there is. Some should stack, some maybe shouldn't, so it's that greater discussion on that. But otherwise we were good.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Swager.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-095 or second reading of revised policies.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
I know we've reviewed these at work session, and that's the board already approved the first reading of these revised policies.
Any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-096. These are second reading of rescinded policies.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any greater discussion?
As a reminder, these are ones that sometimes it's just easier to rescind than replace because of transition.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-097. Second reading of replacement policies.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? We've seen these twice now. Call the roll, please.
Sorry, my computer's lagging. May I have the motion again?
It was
first?
Amanda and then Alan.
So it will be for all
We've seen it
policies.
3 times.
That you've seen it 3 times.
So
Mrs.
let's correct the
Yeah.
number of times.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-098. First reading of revised policies.
Motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on these? Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-099. First reading to rescind policies.
Motion, please.
Motion.
I'll
Second.
second it.
Discussion. Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-100. First reading of replacement policies.
Motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution 24-05-101 is the first reading of new policy.
Motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Any board comments? Moving over to superintendent.
I have a list of things today to talk about. As a reminder, graduation May 24th at 7 p.m. We are watching the extended forecast. It has changed and it's not for the better rain. So about 39% chance of rain. There's rain possibly before or after, the days before or after. So we're watching that. A little larger graduating class than recent years. So we'll keep you updated on what we're going to do with that. But the gym does get a little small. So we'll look it up.
Who's taking the RSVP? I'm in. I forgot. I got my letter the other
Yeah.
day. I'll be there.
RSVPing.
Yeah.
I'm RSVPing today.
Yes.
We're good. We're all good.
I'll be there.
We'll be there.
Okay.
Even if it's freezing
Save
cold,
some
right,
posters.
Tim?
No
And
kidding.
it-
No kidding.
Like that one year. Right.
Freezing cold and raining and snowing all in
Yeah,
the
we,
same
we've been there
evening.
before.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've never seen a person shake so much, Derek.
And I've lost the room. So, okay. Okay. Senior awards ceremony is coming up on May 22nd at 7 p.m. So that's always a great time to celebrate our seniors. Mrs. Schaefer talked about Teacher Appreciation Week. We had a great week last week. Principals did an outstanding job, and it's awesome to celebrate our staff. And we talk about the students and the teachers are the heart of everything we do. So really appreciate
And I
it.
want to thank Craig on that too, because social media wise, that's where most people see what actually goes on. So I do want to thank Craig as well for actually documenting that and putting out all the festivities there. So thank you.
Yeah. We have support with that from the PTO, the church group that come in. So it's a lot, it's great that it's outside the school district. People really do appreciate this now. Battle of the Books was held on May 10th. We'll give you an update on that. It's just on Friday.
Did you make it? Oh.
Mrs. Clark? She kind of holds a record.
I didn't
for
even
that,
know he was
so.
back there till he just spoke up.
Oh, there you
I put next on the agenda Southwest Licking Community Water and Sewer District. We kind of covered that already, Mr. Swagger, when you talked earlier. It's really that issue about water and sewer. And, as you said, we have the annexed area now, but there's greater discussion to occur. I'm not going to get everything segmented as well, but it's water and sewer. So we're working with the city and our other partners. The Great Miles and State, we've been working on that for some time. It's been in the Licking County Court, and recently we received notice that there was a judgment entries, and we were not successful in our bid to be recognized as a party. In fact, they removed everyone. The AG's office, they took that recommendation, removed everyone. I do think there's some discussion still about donating the land to Licking Park District, so we'll have to talk about options, if any. So more to come on that. JES, highlight a couple things there. We had at Johnstown Elementary, we obviously had Purple Star Award. I don't think we've had a formal board meeting since that time, but again, Mr. McDonald did a great job showcasing that, and Mrs. Wagner did a great job with others there putting in the application. And now, we reward success, but we're also going to take that next reach. So we're going to look at all the buildings now and see if we can get them also Purple Star next year. So it's certainly exciting. And then on Friday, you probably saw we had the event with Intel, and Intel representatives always try to rotate different schools. So we went to JES, and I have to tell you, talk about creativity. Mrs. Wagner had a schedule set, and some things changed. We had ice cream vendor changes, some different things, but she rolled with it, and we got all the students and staff to participate through the event. Little rain there too, and we had some rotation in the building, but it all went well. And the Intel representatives were telling me, like, you guys are so good at this. I'm like, yeah, we're built for this. We know how to make changes quickly and make them successful. So tremendous job there. Next, and I know the board has seen some updates, we have our construction manager at risk, and we've gone through that two-step process. So we did the request for qualifications. We narrowed down to a list of 3 now. So we're looking at Elford, Robertson, and Smoot, and now we're at the RFP stage. So there was a deadline last week to submit any questions. None were submitted. So this week we expect to see the actual RFPs. And just from a process standpoint, we'll have our internal team go through those. And then we have a rubric that we'll use to begin the scoring. We'll draft that, and then we're going to ask for a couple board members, Mr. Swagger, probably you, and Mrs. Boer, if she's back, because that'll be part of our strategic planning and economic development project and construction project. So you'll see more coming about that in the future. Calendar committee met, and not huge changes for the 26-27 school year, but I'll bring those to the board. We'll give you an update in a week or so, and then ask you to vote on that. We also want to make a slight change to next year's calendar. It's just on a professional development day, so it shouldn't be too disruptive, but we were talking with the staff. I think it'd be better to rotate one of those days, especially with all the curriculum. So
Is there a solar eclipse next year that we have to work around?
No solar eclipse.
Okay.
No solar eclipse. Nope.
Been here for like 40 years. So.
Yeah. Talk about Aurora Borealis. It's gonna be, I'm not sure that qualifies. Okay. And then the Greater Johnstown Parks and Rec District Board of Trustees. As a reminder, we have one position open, and we expect a second position summer. So we did conduct interviews we posted for it, and we had 3 applicants. We're looking to fill 1 position now, and then 1 most likely in the summer. So I'll be talking with the board about next steps on that. And then lastly, under miscellaneous, it's National Police Week. So we're going to reach out to Johnstown. I did it. I knew I was going to do it at some point, right? Johnstown Police Department. And then also, we don't want to forget our Licking County Sheriff's Office, because we were checking, and they also are considered police if they don't have their own day. So we'll certainly look to them and kind of acknowledge them this week for their recognize them. And I think that's all I have, unless there's questions.
I have none. Anyone else?
Seniors, check your email because Ms. Merrill is looking for some information. And, I know she sent out an email again today. It's past the deadline, so check your emails.
Good reminder.
Thank you very much.
The resolution for executive session.
Yep.
That's resolution 24-05-102.
If I can get a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
And we have 3 reasons for executive session. The first one's consideration of appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. Second reason is discussion of the board's legal counsel of disputes involving the board that are subject of pending or imminent court action. And then the third one is for conducting, reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of employment. So we have 3 separate issues there. And Mr. Swager did not anticipate requesting a vote at the outcome after executive session.
Okay. So no action expected afterwards. We can get call the roll to go into.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
6:28. Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.